So this, of course, is the cover story on Fine Print tonight. Tensions are running high in the Taiwan Strait. The dragon, as we speak, is breathing fire, and on target is Taipei. Taiwan claims that China has set up a no-fly zone around its territory, citing space activities as the reason for it.
This is a no-fly zone set up by China. The no-fly zone, which is within our air defense identification zone. Everyone can look up this public intelligence information you just mentioned. It's around 85 nautical miles off the north of Taiwan.
The no-fly zone, first proposed for 3 full days, is now being shortened to just 27 minutes on Sunday. Now, Taipei says that China has revised the closure following objections that were raised from Taiwan. But Beijing, meanwhile, has said that it has no clue about what Taiwan is saying.
With regards to your first question, I am unaware of the relevant situation. You can direct your inquiries to the corresponding government department.
While on the one hand, the Chinese officials claim that they see no reason for any objections to be raised, the Japanese cabinet secretary has said that Tokyo was earlier informed of a closure by the Chinese authorities. The no-fly zone setup comes at a very crucial time. China, remember, has just ended its military drills around Taiwan. It was in response to the US House Speaker Kevin McCarthy's visit to the self-ruled island. Beijing now says that the drills were a serious warning to the pro-independence leaders in Taiwan as well as their allies.
At present, the separatist forces for Taiwan independence are constantly plotting independence and provoking, and external forces are intensifying their endeavor of containing China with Taiwan as a tool. These are seriously damaging the fundamental interests of the Chinese nation and the vital interests of Taiwanese compatriots, seriously endangering peace and stability in the Taiwanese Strait, and seriously damaging the prospect of peaceful reunification.
Although China has said that these exercises are now over, it has kept up military pressure against Taiwan in the past few days and has signaled that it will do more. In the wake of Beijing's recent actions, Taiwan has also raised an alarm. Now, speaking to an American broadcaster, the Taiwanese Foreign Minister Joseph Wu in fact claimed that China could be getting ready to launch a war against Taiwan. The Chinese President Xi Jinping, meanwhile, has called on the army, that is the Chinese People's Liberation Army, to strengthen its military training oriented towards actual combat. Xi Jinping made these comments during a naval inspection, where he told the PLA's Southern Theatre Command Navy that the forces must resolutely defend China's territorial sovereignty and maritime interests and must strive to protect the overall peripheral stability. Last week, the CCP mouthpiece, Global Times, interestingly, had put out this animated video of how Beijing can strike Taiwan. This is the video that the Global Times put out. The 10-second animation shows the trajectory of the missiles launched on Taiwan from China, as well as its warships deployed in the sea. This is a pretty ominous sign of things to come. Now, China has for long claimed the self-ruled island as its own territory as a part of its One China policy. Beijing maintains that it will not shy away from using force if need be, if it has to achieve its goals. And also to give us more insights in terms of what this no-fly zone by Beijing, of course, means, we're being joined by Lev Nachman, who's a political science professor at National Chengchi University in Taiwan. He's joining us live on this broadcast. Now, Professor Nachman, thank you very much indeed for joining us here. And the question that I want to ask you is this. What is China planning to do with its no-fly zone? It says that this no-fly zone is meant for some space activities that it intends to carry out. But is Taipei willing to accept this kind of a, explanation by the Chinese for a no-fly zone of this kind?
Thank you for having me. What was originally stated to be a multiple-day-long drill turned into be something that only required 27 minutes of no-fly zone time. So I think, the initial dire reports of just how incredulous this drill is going to be is actually far more minor and perhaps not nearly as serious as initially thought. Even though this type of drill is by no means welcome from Taipei's perspective, it's important to keep in mind that the PRC, although they have been building up their capabilities are not the same thing as intent. And even though the PRC is trying to have the capacity to launch some sort of attack against Taiwan, it does not mean that they are necessarily going to do so in the short term.
Absolutely, indeed. And also how concerned is Taipei, with this animation that was put out by Global Times, which indicated as to what China intends to do, launching missiles which are clearly aimed at Taiwan?
That's mostly fear-mongering from the PRC, because it's important to keep in mind that that kind of scenario is highly unlikely. Because what the PRC hopes to do is to unify and essentially annex Taiwan into the PRC. And if it bombs the entire island, then it's going to not really win over the love and support of everyone who lives here. There's far more possible scenarios that the PRC would take before it goes to some sort of, doomsday scenario like the one that they used in their graphic that they shared. For example, a blockade would be far more likely before we see any sort of actual dire sort of bombing like they portrayed. That really is much more to do with trying to make Taiwanese people feel fear and panic, which they don't here. I've been here, throughout these drills, and I was here in August when Nancy Pelosi came to Taiwan. And the domestic response here has always been a very calm and collected response from civil society. People here are not afraid of the PRC threats.
All right, very interesting. And also, it's very interesting that you say that this is essentially just propaganda, the kind of animation video, that has created a lot of ripples around the world of the Chinese launching those missiles. You say that China wants to take Taiwan, but it does not want to destroy Taiwan, and therefore it would not resort to a scenario where it would be launching those missiles. The fact is, Beijing and the Xi Jinping has repeatedly said that it intends to reunify with Taiwan, even with force if needed. With force is essentially a war that Beijing is talking and threatening Taiwan with. But you say that is something that China does not want to do. It wants to take Taiwan, but it does not want to destroy Taiwan and then take it.
Correct. That kind of scenario is a very last case scenario. Even though it is most certainly a possibility, I don't want it to seem like there is no possibility of some awful war breaking out.
Right.
It is a real possibility, but it's important to keep in mind that there is a spectrum of options and policy choices that the PRC can take before it actually has to resort to that level of dire
Mr.
action.
Nachman, I just want to interject here. With what you're suggesting, do you think that China wants to bring about some kind of a coup in Taipei for reunification rather than a military conflict? Is that the suggestion that you're making?
No, what they're hoping to do is to win over the hearts and minds of people in Taiwan to vote for some sort of pro-China party like the KMT in order to enable a domestic sort of mutual rapprochement between Taiwan and the PRC. There's lots of other different options that they have to try to push a unification agenda domestically that does not require any sort of violence or action on behalf of any sort of military.
All right, very interesting there. Thank you very much indeed, Professor Nachman, for joining us and getting us all those insights there.
Thank you for having me.